I'm Ben, and at 28, I never thought I'd be the one holding everything together. I mean, at my age, most guys are focused on climbing the career ladder, figuring out their future, or at least living a little bit. But here I am, barely able to catch my breath between working 2 jobs while covering my family's bills. Ben, honey? The therapy bill came through again. My mom's voice crackled through the phone, just like it had the past few months. I know you've done a lot already, but... She trailed off. I pulled up my bank app, while the phone was wedged between my shoulder and ear, scrolling through my expenses. How much this time, Mom? Here's how we got here. My older brother Alex, who's 31, had what my mom calls a career setback. Hell, that's putting it nicely. He had a full-blown breakdown after he didn't get a promotion at work. Instead of handling it like an adult, he quit on the spot. Just like that. Burned bridges faster than you could say, fired. I don't get it, man, Alex had raged at me that day. How does Dan get the promotion over me? Do you have any idea how long I've been working my ass off there? I remember sitting in my small apartment, the one I rented right after getting my first real job, trying to comfort him. I thought he'd calm down, take a breather, and land a better job soon. But nah, that didn't happen. Months went by. Then more months. Alex stayed in our parents' house, glued to the couch, applying for jobs that had unrealistic expectations, like a 4-day work week and unlimited vacation days, while I was busting my ass working overtime at my marketing job, handling extra clients just to make ends meet. 7 months into this, and Alex hadn't lifted a finger to help out. Instead, it was me. I was covering the bills for the house, making sure the fridge was stocked, and even paying for Alex's therapy sessions. Because, he's making progress, Ben, Mom would say. Progress? From where I stood, it just looked like more money flowing out of my bank account. Meanwhile, Alex sat there, my older brother, living like a guest in my own parents' home, turning down job after job because they weren't good enough. Every time I looked at my parents, I saw the stress building on their faces. My mom's worry lines were getting deeper, and my dad's shoulders were constantly slumped. All I wanted was for us to get away, to have something positive to look forward to, so I took it upon myself to plan a trip. A getaway. Rome, baby. Just the 3 of us. I spent weeks researching, setting up every detail to make it perfect. A fancy hotel, private tours, the works. I even booked a wine tour for Dad because he loved a good glass of red, and a cheese tasting tour for Mom because it had always been her dream to try real Italian cheese. This trip was supposed to be the escape we needed, a chance to forget everything, and just breathe. I imagined it, walking through Trastevere, enjoying life again, laughing over a glass of wine, sharing memories. But life has a way of crashing your dreams in a split second. One moment I'm cruising to a meeting with a client, planning out our trip the next day, feeling good. The next, there's a deafening crash, a screech of metal, and then, nothing. I don't remember much. Just bits and pieces, sirens, paramedics, bright hospital lights overhead. When I finally woke up, I was in a hospital bed, every inch of me throbbing like I'd been hit by a truck. The doctor said I needed emergency surgery, but that it had gone well, so I wasn't going anywhere anytime soon. You're lucky, the nurse told me, adjusting the IV in my arm. That airbag saved you from the worst, but the other car hit you hard. It was only when my mom and Alex came into the room that I started to feel the weight of what had just happened. My mom was holding the damn purse she had bought just for our Rome trip, and the sight of it made my stomach drop. I'm sorry, I whispered, voice rough from the breathing tube. We'll have to cancel everything. I'll make the calls today, and we'll go when I'm better. I expected disappointment, maybe even a little frustration. What I didn't expect was what my mom said next. Oh, don't worry about it, Ben, she said, her voice unnervingly calm. Your dad and I talked. We still think we should go. You stay here, and we'll take Alex with us instead. I stared at her waiting for the punchline, but it never came. Alex needs this, she added, patting his shoulder. He's been through a lot this year. He deserves this break. I felt my chest tighten. This was real. They were talking about leaving me here, alone in a hospital bed, after everything I'd done for them. I couldn't breathe. You were supposed to watch the house while we were gone, Alex piped up, his tone too calm, too detached. Since you can't, hire someone reliable. I lay there, open-mouthed, trying to process what was happening. This couldn't be real. My family was abandoning me for a trip that I planned and paid for, and they were acting like it was no big deal. They didn't even ask how I was doing. No sympathy, no concern. They just walked out, leaving me with nothing but the dull beeping of a heart monitor and the crushing realization that they didn't care. I stared at the ceiling, trying to make sense of it all. The painkillers couldn't dull the ache in my chest, the one that had nothing to do with my injuries, she said. She was proud of me, I whispered. But I guess that was a lie. A nurse walked by again. For the third time. She must have noticed the way my heart rate was spiking on the monitor. She stopped in the doorway, concern on her face. Everything okay, honey? Your numbers are looking a little high. I just need my phone, I mumbled. Could you grab it for me? A few minutes later, she returned with a bag of my things. I pulled out my phone, feeling my hands shake as I saw the familiar Christmas picture of me and my parents as my background. I changed it immediately to the default wallpaper. At least something survived the crash, I muttered under my breath, but then I opened my email. There it was, my Rome trip folder. All the plans, the confirmations, the bookings I'd worked so hard on. I stared at it for a moment, fingers hovering over the first cancellation email. Well, I said, voice steady, if they want to treat me like a travel agent instead of a son. One by one, I started canceling everything. I spent the next few days lying in that hospital bed, staring at the sterile walls, while my family went off to Rome like I wasn't even there. I couldn't stop replaying their words in my head. We still think we should go. You stay here, and we'll take Alex with us instead. It felt like a slap to the face. I tried calling them a couple of times to see if they'd changed their minds, but my mom didn't pick up. Alex? He ignored my calls entirely. I left message after message, but all I got were empty responses. Thanks for understanding here. We're thinking of you there. It wasn't the support I needed. It wasn't even close. I spent the first night in that hospital bed fuming, my chest tight with a mix of anger and betrayal. The worst part? I couldn't even say anything to them, not in the moment. I couldn't even make them feel the hurt they had caused. I was too weak, too broken, to fight back. But even then, I knew that things had changed forever. The second day wasn't any better. The nurse came in at 9 a.m. to check on me, and I was still scrolling through my phone, reading the same text messages from Alex and my mom over and over again. I couldn't stop myself. I was like a dog gnawing at a bone, trying to find something, in their words, that would make me feel like I wasn't completely invisible. But it never came. I got a notification that my insurance was going to cover my surgery, but none of that mattered. In the grand scheme of things, it felt trivial. Sure, I was physically healing, but emotionally, I felt like I was sinking. Each time I scrolled through social media and saw the photos they posted, smiling in front of the Colosseum, eating pasta in Trastevere, I wanted to throw my phone against the wall. They weren't just leaving me behind. They were flaunting it. The worst part? They didn't even think they were doing anything wrong. On the third day, I finally decided to call them again. Maybe I was hoping for some semblance of empathy. Maybe I was just desperate to hear my mom's voice, to feel like someone cared. I called my mom first. The phone rang a couple of times before she picked up. Hey Ben, how are you feeling? She asked way too cheerfully, like she didn't remember that I was still in a hospital bed after getting hit by a car. I'm okay, I replied, my voice low. How's Rome? Oh, it's lovely, she said. Alex is really enjoying it. We took him to a beautiful vineyard today. He's been so quiet lately, so we wanted to do something special for him. I clenched my jaw, trying to keep the anger from spilling over. That's great, Mom. I'm glad Alex is enjoying it. You know, it's just me here, recovering from a near-death crash, but it's fine. I'll get through it. There was a silence on the other end. I could practically hear her scrambling for something to say. Well, we're really sorry you're in the hospital, Ben, she said finally. But you know, Alex, he really needed this, and we just thought he'd be better off here with us. I closed my eyes, willing myself not to explode. He needed this? What about me? I'd been the one putting in the hours, the effort, the sacrifices. I'd been the one to step up when Alex couldn't, when my parents were drowning in their own problems. But now I was the one left behind, treated like an afterthought. You don't get it, Mom, I said, my voice trembling now. This isn't about Alex. This is about me. You think it's just a few days, but it's not. You've left me here like I don't matter. I don't know if I can even look at you the same way after this. There was a long pause. She didn't say anything right away, and I could hear her breathing deeply. She probably wasn't used to me talking like this. I wasn't the angry, emotional one. That was Alex. But I was done swallowing my frustration. Finally, she spoke. Ben, you know we love you, But we have to take care of Alex right now. He's still hurting. I wanted to scream. It wasn't just about Alex. It was about me too. I'd been hurting for months, carrying the weight of the family, keeping everything from falling apart. But that didn't seem to matter to them. I get it, I said through gritted teeth. I get that you love him. But I'm your son too. Don't forget that. I hung up before she could respond. I didn't want to hear any more of her excuses. I didn't want to listen to the guilt that always came with it when they didn't want to confront the truth. I was the one who was always there. But right now, that didn't seem to count. The rest of the day was a blur. I got a visit from my dad later in the afternoon. He was quiet, the kind of quiet that told me he knew things were tense, but he wasn't going to admit it. He sat down next to me in that uncomfortable hospital chair and gave me the same old tired line. "How you doing, son?" "I'm alive," I said, trying to mask the bitterness in my voice. "Just barely." He nodded, not really looking at me. "You'll be fine. Just take it easy and everything will fall into place." "Right," I muttered. Just like everything else. That night, I couldn't sleep. The hospital room felt colder than it had before, the fluorescent lights flickering overhead. I wanted to break something. I wanted to throw my phone across the room again and watch it shatter into a million pieces. Instead, I lay there, staring at the ceiling, fighting the rising tide of anger. I thought about what I'd said to my mom, about how I told her I might not ever look at her the same way again. But the truth? I didn't know if I could ever look at any of them the same way. They weren't just my family anymore. They were strangers to me. And somehow that hurt more than anything. The next few days felt like they stretched on forever. My body was healing, but the emotional scars? Those weren't going anywhere. Every time I saw a photo from their vacation, I felt that familiar sting in my chest. I was so alone in this. Alone in the hospital. Alone with my thoughts. Alone in this family that seemed to have forgotten I existed. I had one more call with my mom, but that was more for her than me. She needed to hear me say everything was okay. She needed me to reassure her that I wasn't holding any grudges. I couldn't bring myself to lie to her. Not this time. "Ben, are you feeling better?" she asked, the worry in her voice almost unbearable. "How's the recovery?" "Better, I guess," I said, staring out the hospital window. The rain had started again, a cold drizzle against the glass. "Surgery went fine. No complications." "That's good," she replied, sounding like she wanted to say more but didn't know how. Then she added, "Alex really misses you, you know. He's been asking about you a lot." I didn't respond right away. The silence hung between us like a thick fog. It wasn't Alex I wanted to talk to. It was her. But she wasn't hearing me. She wasn't seeing the real problem. "You and Alex are always in touch, right?" I finally asked, trying to keep my voice calm. "How's he doing?" "Oh, he's doing fine. He's happy," she said. But there was a tightness in her voice, like she was forcing it. "I'm glad we brought him. It's been good for him, you know?" "I know," I said, bitterness creeping in. "But I still don't get why you couldn't just stay with me for a few days. It's not like I'm asking you to cancel the whole trip." She sighed. I could hear the frustration building in her voice. "Ben, we've been over this. Alex needed this. You'll be fine. I'll be home soon. We'll take care of everything." The words hit me like a punch to the gut. It was the same excuse. Alex needed this. It always came back to him. Always. "Sure," I said, the fake calmness in my tone masking the rage bubbling beneath the surface. "I'll be fine." I hung up before she could say anything more. The same pattern repeated itself every time. They couldn't see my pain. They couldn't see how much I needed them, how much I was suffocating under the weight of their indifference. By the time they got back from Rome, I was already a different person. I wasn't sure who I was anymore, but I knew I didn't recognize the man I was becoming. I had spent the last few days reading and rereading old texts from Alex, trying to piece together how things had gotten so messed up between us. There was one text that stood out. "Hey man, don't get mad, but I told Mom I was feeling down and she said she'd go with me. You'll understand, I promise." I stared at that text for a while, reading the words over and over, trying to make sense of it. I'll understand, but I didn't. I didn't understand. None of it made sense. Alex had been the golden child, the one who got everything, the one who could do no wrong. And here I was, the afterthought, the one who had always been second, always waiting for their attention, always waiting for a moment when I wasn't overlooked. And it never came. When my parents got back from Rome, it was like nothing had happened. They were happy, chatting about the sights, the food, how Alex had bought them souvenirs. I had to force myself to smile when they showed up at the hospital room, pretending like I was okay, pretending like their absence didn't hurt me. "Hey Ben, look what we brought you," my mom said, handing me a small box wrapped in bright paper. "A little something from our trip." I forced a smile. "Thanks, Mom." I opened it, and inside was a little statue of the Colosseum. A trinket, something you'd buy on the last day of vacation when you were trying to remember the place you'd visited. But for me, it felt like a symbol of everything I had missed. Everything they had gotten that I never did. Alex stood in the doorway, looking awkward, unsure of how to approach me. I couldn't even look him in the eyes. I wasn't sure if I was mad at him or just disappointed in him. Maybe both. But he still thought he could fix things with a gift, a smile, and the casual, "Hey, how's it going?" Like none of it mattered. He walked in, holding out a small bag. "Got this for you, man," he said, forcing his voice to sound casual. "It's a local thing. I thought you'd like it." I took the bag, but I didn't open it. I just stared at him, seeing the awkwardness in his posture. The guilt that he couldn't even hide. "Thanks," I said coldly. "But you don't need to buy me gifts, Alex. That's not what this is about." He looked at me, confused. "What do you mean? I just thought you'd like it." I shook my head. "No, it's not about the gift. It's about you not being here when I needed you. It's about how none of you were here when I needed you." His expression shifted. I could see the realization sinking in, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough to undo the damage. Not by a long shot. "You don't get it, do you?" I asked him, my voice sharp. "You've always been the one who got the attention. The one who got everything handed to him. And now? You don't even see that you've done the same thing to me. Again." Alex stepped back, his face falling. "Ben, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt you. I never wanted to." "I know you didn't," I interrupted. "But that's the problem. You never even thought about me. You never thought about how this affected me." He fell silent. I could see it in his eyes. He was finally starting to get it. But I wasn't sure it mattered anymore. The damage had been done. I was tired of being the one who always had to forgive. Tired of pretending that everything was fine when it never really was. The next few days were a blur of frustration and unresolved tension. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was sinking deeper into a hole I wasn't sure how to climb out of. I spent most of my time alone, trying to focus on healing. But it was hard to ignore the constant ache in my chest. Every time I looked at Alex, every time I saw my parents, I was reminded of the gaping hole between us. It was like we were all in the same room, but we couldn't see each other anymore. My thoughts constantly returned to the trip they had taken without me. The trip that had torn me apart, piece by piece. They had left me. No matter how much I tried to pretend it didn't hurt, it did. Alex came by the next day, acting like everything was normal. He brought a coffee and sat next to my bed, trying to make small talk. It was the kind of thing that normally would have been comforting. But now, it felt like a shallow attempt to cover up the cracks. "You doing okay?" he asked, his voice tentative. "I mean, after everything, with the surgery and all." I looked at him, not even trying to hide the bitterness. "Sure, I'm fine." He took a sip of his coffee, looking around the room like he was avoiding my gaze. "So, you think you'll be out of here soon?" The casualness of his question made my stomach churn. Did he really not get it? Or was he just so oblivious that he couldn't see the weight of the situation? "I don't know," I said flatly. "Guess it depends on when they clear me to leave." Alex paused for a moment, then shifted in his seat. "Look, Ben, I didn't mean for things to go like they did. I mean, I thought it would be good for Mom and me to go, and I didn't even think about how it would affect you. I should have—" "You should have stayed," I interrupted, my voice colder than I meant it to be. "But you didn't, and it's not like you didn't know how much it mattered. You're just too wrapped up in your own world to see anything else." I could see the guilt written all over his face, but it wasn't enough. Not anymore. I had waited for him to come around, to see things my way, but it never happened. And now, after everything, I wasn't sure I could even forgive him. The anger wasn't going away. "I'm sorry, okay?" he said, a frustrated edge creeping into his voice. "I messed up, and I know that. But you've got to understand, I didn't think it would be that big of a deal. I thought you'd be fine." "You thought I'd be fine?" I repeated, staring at him. "You really thought I'd be fine? After everything that happened? After all these years of always being in the background while you got everything?" Alex opened his mouth like he was about to respond, but no words came out. He seemed caught in the moment, realizing that there was no easy fix, no quick apology to make it go away. The silence between us stretched on until it felt suffocating. I could see him grappling with the fact that maybe, just maybe, this was bigger than he thought. But it was too little. Too late. "I don't know how to fix this, Ben," he finally said, his voice quieter. "I really don't. But I want to try." I shook my head slowly, looking away. I couldn't even look at him anymore. The words felt hollow. How could he want to fix things when he hadn't even been there when I needed him most? How could he pretend that we were just going to pick up where we left off? "You can't fix this, Alex," I said, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. "You can't just apologize and think everything's going to be okay. This is bigger than that." Alex fell silent again, clearly struggling to find the right thing to say. But he wasn't getting it. No amount of words was going to take back the fact that he had left me alone. No amount of coffee or gifts could change that reality. He stood up, looking defeated. "I'll leave you alone for now. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. I'll always be here if you want to talk." I didn't answer. I just watched him walk out, the door closing softly behind him. The loneliness returned in full force as the door clicked shut. I could feel the weight of it settling over me again, heavier than before. The anger, the frustration, the sense of being completely invisible. None of it had gone away. I didn't want to be alone anymore, but at the same time, I didn't know how to bridge the gap that had formed between us. Was it even worth trying? After everything? The thought haunted me, because I wasn't sure I was strong enough to carry the weight of all this anger and disappointment. I wasn't sure I could face my family again without feeling like I was drowning. I wasn't sure how to fix something that felt so broken, so far beyond repair. But then again, maybe it was already too late. Maybe they didn't even care anymore. The days blurred into each other, and the silence became my constant companion. I had long since stopped hoping things would go back to normal. It was like I was watching my own life unfold from a distance, numb to everything around me. My room felt like a cage, but every time I thought about leaving it, the outside world seemed even more suffocating. It wasn't just Alex anymore. The absence of my parents was a constant ache, too. Their visits were sporadic, and when they did come, it was like they were walking on eggshells, unsure of how to act around me, as if they were afraid of saying the wrong thing. But nothing they could say would change the fact that they'd abandoned me when I needed them most. I had always felt like I was the one holding everything together, the one who kept the peace in the family. But now, I felt like the outsider, the forgotten one. It was hard to look at any of them and not feel betrayed. A week passed before I got the courage to check my phone. I had left it untouched for days, unable to face the messages, the missed calls. But I needed to know what was going on. Maybe there was something I could fix, some way to salvage whatever was left. There were messages from my parents, 1 or 2 from friends, and a dozen from Alex. He was still trying, still apologizing, still making excuses for why everything happened the way it did. But none of it made any difference. The words felt empty, like a broken record playing on repeat. I scrolled past them, not bothering to open any. It was all too much. I couldn't pretend to care about their excuses anymore. That's when I saw the text from my mom. "Ben, we're coming over tonight. We need to talk." I stared at it for a long moment, unsure of what to do. Was it even worth it? What were they going to say that could change anything? The thought of seeing them again made my stomach twist. But I knew I couldn't keep avoiding them forever. Maybe it was time for them to finally understand just how much they had hurt me. I replied with a simple, "Okay." An hour later, they were at my door. The sound of the knock sent a wave of dread through me. I hesitated for a moment, then opened it. My parents stood there, both looking like they had rehearsed this moment in their heads. My mom's eyes were red, her face drawn with concern. My dad, usually the stoic one, seemed uneasy. It was clear that they were both struggling with the gravity of the situation, but I didn't know if it was because they were genuinely concerned or because they finally realized how badly they'd messed up. "Ben," my mom said softly. I cut her off. "You're sorry, right? That's what you came to say?" She flinched at my tone, but I didn't care. I needed to let it out. I needed them to hear it. "Ben," my dad began, stepping forward, "we didn't mean for things to turn out like this. We thought you'd be okay, that you'd understand. We didn't realize how much we were hurting you." "How much you were hurting me," I repeated, the sarcasm thick in my voice. "You left me alone," in the middle of all this, and you thought I'd just understand? You thought I'd be okay with that? My mom's eyes filled with tears, and she reached out as if to comfort me. But I stepped back, unable to let her touch me. It was too late for that. I don't know what you want me to say, I continued, my voice cracking with anger. You don't get it. It's not just about the trip. It's everything. It's the years of being invisible, of never being enough. And now you show up, acting like a few sorry words are going to make it all better. Well, they won't. They were both silent, the weight of my words hanging in the air. I could see that they were shocked, but honestly, I didn't care. I was done protecting them. I was done pretending that everything was fine when it wasn't. Ben, my mom whispered, tears streaming down her face. We never meant to hurt you. We thought we were doing what was best. We thought... I shook my head, feeling a surge of bitterness. You thought? That's the problem. You never thought about me. And now I'm supposed to just forgive you, because you feel bad? Ben, please, my dad said, his voice full of regret. We can fix this. We can try to make it right. I looked at them, my anger bubbling up again. You can't fix this. This is broken, and I don't know if I can ever trust you again. The room was heavy with silence. My parents stood there, their faces full of guilt and regret, but nothing they said could undo the hurt. I had waited for so long for them to see me, for them to care. But now I realized that even if they did, it might be too late. The silence lingered, suffocating. My parents stood there, looking like two people who had finally realized the weight of everything they had done, and were realizing they might not be able to undo it. I could see it in their eyes. They wanted to fix things. But the truth was, I wasn't sure if I could ever forgive them. I think you should leave, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. My mom's face crumbled. Ben, please, we can work this out. We're your parents. You're our son. I wanted to scream, to tell them how much I had suffered, but something inside me told me that no matter how loud I yelled, they would never truly understand. Maybe they didn't have the capacity to. I don't want to talk anymore, I said, turning my back on them. I felt the cold air from the open door hit my skin, but it didn't matter. The emotional coldness inside me was far worse. My dad stepped forward, his voice breaking. Ben, we're sorry. Please don't shut us out. We've made mistakes, but we love you. The word love felt hollow. It was like they were using it as a way to fix everything. But it didn't work like that. I wasn't a child anymore, and I wasn't going to let them smooth everything over with a few words. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I just nodded toward the door. I said, leave. The room was tense. They exchanged a glance. My dad with a face full of regret, my mom still looking like she couldn't comprehend how we'd gotten here. But neither of them moved. I could feel the heat rise inside me. The anger that had been building for so long, finally breaking through. It was all the hurt, all the isolation, all the years of pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. I turned, fully facing them now, the fury evident on my face. You want to know why I'm angry? I shouted. Because I gave you everything I had, and you treated me like I didn't matter. You treated me like I was invisible, like you didn't even care about how I felt. And now you show up here, acting like you can just apologize and fix everything. But it's too late for that. Their eyes widened, both of them shocked by my outburst. I could see the sting of my words hitting home, but it didn't stop me. I've spent my whole life trying to prove to you that I was worth your time, that I was worth loving. But you didn't see it. You never saw me. And I'm done. I'm done trying. I'm done pretending. You've destroyed whatever relationship we had left, and there's no going back from that. The finality of my words hung in the air. My parents stood frozen, unable to say anything. The anger I'd kept buried for so long was now spilling over, and there was nothing they could do to stop it. You've hurt me more than you'll ever understand, I said, my voice now steady, cold. And I'm done being the person who always forgives. You've pushed me too far. I watched as my parents exchanged looks, faces full of disbelief and regret. But it didn't matter anymore. They couldn't take back what they'd done. They couldn't erase the years of neglect, of treating me as less than I was. I don't need your apologies, I said, shaking my head. I need you to understand that I'm not the same person anymore. You've lost me, and you'll never get me back. I turned my back on them for the last time. I could feel their eyes on me, but I didn't care anymore. This was it. The final break. I watched them leave through the window, the two of them standing on the doorstep for a moment before turning away, walking down the path. They didn't look back. And that was all the closure I needed. In the days that followed, I didn't feel relief. Not at first. It was more like an emptiness. Like the hole they'd left in me had just gotten bigger. But over time that emptiness began to fade, replaced by a quiet kind of strength. I had finally let go of something I had clung to for far too long. It wasn't easy. It never would be. But I was no longer the person who sought their approval. I didn't need them to define who I was. I wasn't going to be their punching bag anymore, their afterthought. And as for Alex, he didn't try reaching out again. And for once, I was okay with that. Sometimes, the hardest thing isn't letting go of the people you love. It's letting go of the version of them you've been holding on to in your mind. The people I had hoped they would be were never coming back, but I was free now. Free from the weight of their neglect. Free from the lies. Free from the endless cycle of disappointment, and it felt like I could finally breathe. And here it is. The finale of today's story. Did everything turn out as you imagined? Or did it end unexpectedly? I'd love to hear what you think. Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and let's dive into the discussion together. If this story kept you in suspense, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't signed up yet, what are you waiting for? This is your chance to join an incredible community where exciting new stories unfold every day. Click the subscribe button and turn on notifications to stay up to date. Thanks for your attention, and see you on your new adventures.